Want a stress-free way to get your bird to go back in their cage? Stick around to find out more. Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well and having a fantastic week. Or if you're new around here, then hi, I'm Sophie and I'm a certified professional bird trainer, and in today's video I'm going to show you some stress-free ways to get your bird to go back in their cage voluntarily. It can be really stressful if you want your bird to go in and they don't want to do it. So we need to set them up for success, and that's why I'm providing you with these tips today. So stick around to the end to make sure you are well informed on how to get your bird to go back in the cage. A big reason I see quite a lot with people who struggle to get their birds back in the cage is sometimes they use the cage as a place of punishment. They use it for a timeout. The bird does something that they don't like screaming or biting or being hormonal or whatever it is that they don't want, so they put the bird back in the cage. That is 100% the worst thing that you can do in that situation, for a variety of reasons. Firstly, you're making the cage a bad place to be. You're basically telling them it's bad to be there, I'm putting you away, and that's not quite what you want to see the cage as. I want to see the bird's cage as a bedroom, a really fun space to be, with lots of things to do and lots of enrichment. Secondly, it can also train some bad behaviours. For example, if your bird does want to go back in the cage, they'll know all they need to do is to bite you or start screaming, and you will personally taxi them over here to go back in. So they might be training you. And thirdly, it's not a great idea because it doesn't actually address the root cause of the problem and the undesirable behaviour. But if you do need help solving any undesirable behaviour in a better and more positive way, then do contact David and I at Best Behaved Birds. All the info will be down in the description. My next starting tip to make sure your bird wants to go back in the cage is to make sure that your bird's cage is big enough. Now, I know it's tricky to find the right kind of cages and things, but for the absolute bare minimum, and not that we should be striving for minimums, but the bare minimum size requirements for your bird would be a cage length is 3 fully outstretched wing lengths across, so that way, which all of my birds can do in theirs, and for height, you want it to be 3 lengths from the head down to the tip of the tail. So 3 fully outstretched wings across, and 3 head to tail tips down. If your cage is smaller than that, then your bird might not want to go back in there. It might be too small of a space. So do consider the actual space size of your bird's cage to make sure they actually want to go in there, and make sure there are lots of fun things to do in there as well. Lots of species appropriate enrichment, toys they know how to play with, and lovely perches to sit on as well for their foot health. So now let's talk about actually getting your bird in the cage. My first top tip is target training. You've probably heard me talk about it a lot on my channel because it is such a versatile training technique for helping your birds to understand what you're asking of them. You can target your bird in and out of the cage, around the cage and top of the cage and back in again, and they'll know all they need to do is touch that target, and then they're going to get a tasty treat, and you know that you can guide your bird to where you want them to be and offer them that reinforcement. It's really, really useful to do, and it does help your bird know what you're asking of them. My next top tip for having your bird go in the cage, leading on from target training, is to always give your bird some reinforcement for going in the cage. You're essentially asking them to do something, and if you pop them in there and shut the door and walk off, there's less incentive. So we want to make sure that we're giving them a little snack to go in the cage. Now this could be a jackpot reinforcement, so a nice big tasty treat that makes them really want to go in there. Or, for example, if you have a cheeky bird who really doesn't want to go in, you've tried everything, you've exhausted all options, sometimes you do just need that really high value treat to get them back in the cage. Louis is a perfect example of that, our one-legged green-cheek conure. He can be a bit cheeky sometimes. He's like, well, come on, make it worth my while. I really want to go in, but you need to make sure you offer me a tasty treat. So we do sometimes use Nutriberries, which have kindly been provided to us by Northern Parrots. They are our shop of choice for lots of toys and perches and other cool parrot accessories. You can get 10% off your first order if you sign up to their newsletter. I do have an affiliate link down in the description if you want to support me in the flock. But Nutriberries are very much a treat food. This is not a food I would ever have in the main diet, but it is a very high value reward, and it is a reward that our birds will want to work for, and they see it as very valuable in comparison to some of the other things you might want to offer them. The other cool thing as well about providing Nutriberries is it gives them a task to do when they go back in the cage. It's not like, okay, back in the cage, door shut, see you later, and they're like, well, what do I do now? It gives them an activity to continue working on as you close the door. A cool thing that we do like to do with our birds is we'll get a Nutriberry, we'll put it into a cake case, we'll scrumple it all up into a twist, and then we'll give it to the birds like that. and they'll hold it in their little feet, or they'll pin it down on the floor depending on which bird we're talking about, and then they'll rip open the cake case to go and find the nutriberry to do some foraging. And it really does occupy their time. It makes it really rewarding to go back in the cage. So we do like to have some of these high value treats on hand to make sure that they really want to go in if they are being a little bit cheeky. There are a variety of sizes and different flavours from Northern Parrots of the nutriberries, so you can get all different kinds of ones for your birds and see what they like, or you can get the discounts that they do like bulk offers and things if you have a variety of birds like we do. But as we said, this is not something that we would have in the main diet. This is something that we reserve for something like foraging or a really high value treat for our birds to go back in the cage. Parrots are very good at predicting what we're going to do, or trying to predict what we're going to do. And if they think that they're going back in the cage and maybe they don't want to, they can sometimes know that, and they'll be like, well, I'm not going in. So a little game that you can do with your target training to make it less predictable is to target them in the cage, close the door, give them a treat, open the door immediately, let them back out again. They'll be like, huh? That's not what we normally do. I normally stay in here for a while again, which is sometimes why they don't always want to go in, because they know it might be a long time before they come out again. So we open the door, let them out again, then we pop them back in the cage, shut the door maybe for 1 minute, let them back out again. They'll be like, oh, hang on a minute. This is different. I'm not quite used to this. This is interesting. And they'll be more likely to do that if you practice this exercise at random intervals in the day, just letting them come in and out of that cage for different amounts of time, shorter amounts of time than you normally do. It definitely breaks up their superstitious thinking and behaviour when it comes to what they expect when they go back in the cage, which might be you disengaging from them. And that is my next tip, which is to avoid disengaging immediately when you put your bird back in the cage. It's something that's easily done because we're rushing around, we're busy. We just want to get them back in the cage so we can go to work or go out, whatever it is that we need to do, jump on a video call. But again, our birds know that, and they know that when that door closes, we're walking off immediately. So let's break those expectations by sticking around. Maybe we'll chat to them a bit, maybe we'll scritch them through bars. Maybe we'll do a few targets as well, a few behaviours through the bars, giving them treats, and just make going in a really positive experience that they don't think that the second that door closes, you're walking off. We also want to choose cages that have nice big doors so our birds can go in and out easily. If you're trying to kind of get them to go through a really small space, they might be less likely to want to participate. So making it really easy for them to go in is very useful. Now Pickles is going to perfectly demonstrate something which we call a peeking perch, and that's a really silly name that David gave to this. But it's essentially a perch on the inside of the cage door. Now, why is this useful, you might be asking? Well, Pickles is going to perfectly demonstrate what we can do is we can ask our bird to step up, we can give them a treat, and we can then close the door, and then our bird is in there safely. Instead of trying to wrangle them onto a perch at the back of the cage, they can just be on this perch here. We can give them treats through the bars here. We also like to see it as a bit of a training hub. It's a great place to do in-cage training and protected contact training. And it is also an easy way for them to come out as well if they want to step up onto that perch and come out too, but Pickles is going to come out on my hand. But it is a really, really useful thing that you can have. And again, if you have a nice cage door which opens and is very big, then you can have your peeking perch on there. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, just a simple perch that you can have as a way for your bird to get in and out of the cage on that perch really easily. We also want to make sure that we have the right mindset, right emotional kind of mindset as well when we are getting our birds back in the cage, because again, we can get really stressed, which then makes our birds stressed, which then makes them not want to go in the cage. We also want to make sure we leave enough time to get them back in the cage before we need to leave the house. If we know we need to leave in 5 minutes and we think our bird isn't going to go in the cage, we are going to be really stressed, which is going to prolong the whole experience. Everyone's going to get annoyed, and it's going to be a really, really unpleasant experience for everybody. So instead of leaving 5 minutes, maybe leave half an hour and just change your schedule ever so slightly so that you've got plenty of time to work on getting them in the cage voluntarily. The last thing we want to be doing is toweling them, grabbing them, throwing in the cage, thinking, oh, thank goodness they're finally in. That is not going to make them want to go in the cage in the future either. It might get them in once, it's probably not going to get them in again, and you're going to be losing trust every time you force your bird to go back in the cage. So make sure you leave plenty of time, keep the experience and the environment really nice and calm to make sure that you are both more likely to succeed in this activity. Let me know in the comments if you have any other top tips for getting your bird in the cage voluntarily, because I would love to hear from you, and I would love for you to share your thoughts with the rest of the bird community. But thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.